when you want to make a map, the easiest way to do this is simply by double-clicking on one of your geographical date fields. When I do this, I instantly get a map, and you see the longitude and latitude are generated by Tableau. So this is something that Tableau does automatically. But we know that we have more cities in our data source than are shown on the map right now. And this is because sometimes you have two cities in two different countries that have the same name. For example, London in England and London in Canada. So when I drag country onto detail as well, Tableau now knows that I mean London in Canada, and it shows it on the map. So let's drag province in here as well, and we see all the cities that are in our data source. So this is one way of doing it, but we know that we have our own latitude and longitude fields in our data source as well. So look at the geodata and drag in our own fields. I'll drag the longitude to columns and the latitude to rows. And now we see that there is one point plotted. So this is basically a scatter plot. And we know that Tableau aggregates our measures. So this is the average of all the longitudes in our data source, and this is the average of all the latitudes in our data source. So we need a dimension to slice this up. So let's use city again. I drag it onto detail, and immediately you see that all the cities are plotted on the map again. So that looks good. And we can now change these marks a little bit. So let's use the employee ID on the size of the marks. We now have all the individual IDs, but I just want to show the count distinct again. So we can see that the cities that have more employees are larger than the cities with fewer employees. We can also change the size of these marks, and we see that there's a bit of overlap. So let's change the opacity a little bit so you can see the individual marks. So that looks good. So now let's look at the distance from home. So what cities the employees have a larger travel distance than in other cities. Let's drag this onto color. You now see that the cities that have a larger sum of travel distance are now darker green. So let's change this to an average because we want to know the average distance. So the dark green have a larger travel distance than the lighter greens. So this is a nice overview of your employees plotted on your map, with also an overview of the travel distance per city. So that looks good. Let's give this a name. And we can now start building our dashboard. We click here on this icon that says New Dashboard. And the first thing we see is that we no longer have our data pane, but we now have a dashboard pane. And you can toggle between the layout pane and the dashboard pane. Now the first thing you need to consider when building a dashboard is the device that the end user is going to view it on. So if the end user is going to view it on a tablet or on a phone, it should be a lot of a different size than when you're going to use it for presentation or just on your computer. So for now, I will edit this size so that it fits my entire screen. And then we can have a look at the sheets that we just created. So they're all lined up here, and you can see previews when you hover over them. And down here are some objects that you can drag and drop into your dashboard, such as text, image, a web page, or a blank object. And then you can choose if you want it to be tiled or floating. So when I drag this map into this dashboard, you see now it's tiled. So all the different objects and sheets don't overlap. But if I change this to a floating object, you can now drag it over a sheet or another object, so they can overlap. I'll just leave this here, and I'll just delete this one for now. Now, if I want to add more sheets, I can just drag and drop it into it, and you see that this gray area appears, and that's where your sheet will be dropped if you let it go. So I want to drop it underneath of the map, so I'll drop it here. And I will add another sheet and another one like this. And so I can remove this legend because we don't really need it now. And you can just adjust the sizes. And because they're all tiled, they will never overlap. So you can just fit them next to each other. So now you already have your dashboard. The only thing you want to do is make it look a bit prettier and give it a title. So here we can click Show Dashboard Title, and the title automatically appears on top of the dashboard. So let's call this the Workforce Overview. Maybe make it a little bit bigger. And I'll give it some more space. And that's your dashboard already. So now if you want to make some more formatting changes to your sheets, you can either do it from the dashboard or you can go to the sheet. So if you click on this icon with the little arrow, you can go to the sheet and you can make your adjustments here. So for example, I want to delete this title, so I can say Edit Axis. And I can just take this title away. And you see now we only have the dates. And if I go back to the dashboard, the title is gone here as well. Let's do the same for the other axis. So I will go to the sheet again, edit the axis and remove the title. And that looks cleaner already. So let's have a look at this bar graph as well, this side-by-side bar chart, because this is not how we wanted it. I will change these dimensions again. So we first divide it by the job satisfaction and the year since last promotion, and then by gender. And we also wanted the gender on the color. So now it's blue and orange, and I think this looks better with our other blue graph as well. So that's nice. I don't like this axis, so I'm going to remove that. So let's go to the sheet again, and let's just say deselect show header. And let's just put the labels on top of the bars. So that looks good. We still have the sum, so I want to change this to the average. And let's see if we can format this. Format the number. Now it has 2 decimals. That's fine by me. You see that the format pane overlaps the data pane. You can just click that away and you get back to the data pane. Now let's make this a little bit bigger and a little bit more readable. And now if I go back to the dashboard, you see that it looks a little bit more clean than it did before. So I can change this title and just call it number of employees, because we already see the job role here. And now it's lined out a little bit better. I can right click and hide this title because I think it's pretty obvious that this is a map. And we have a dashboard. And now I already formatted this and gave it a workbook theme. And by default, it would look like this. And with this theme, there are some formatting options put into place, which you can also do manually. If you go to the layout, you can give borders and background colors to all of your sheets and your objects. So I can also give these sheets a border. And the title as well. Make it a bit bigger. So now we have a dashboard. The only thing is that this dashboard is not interactive yet. So if I click this, nothing happens to the other sheets. It's just individual sheets next to each other, but we want them to talk to each other. So if I select a city, I want them to filter the other sheets to show me the information of that city. And I can do this by clicking this Use as Filter icon, and see if I click it, you see it's selected now. And when I click on a city, you see that my other sheets are now filtered for this particular city. So you can have a look at the information of the different cities. And this is a really quick and easy way to make an interactive dashboard. And you can also do that by filtering by gender or any of the filters that you have in your sheet. You just simply make the filter available. So if I go to this sheet and say, I want my gender as a filter as well, select both of them. And now, if I go to my dashboard and I click on the drop-down menu and I go to Filter, I can select Gender, and the gender filter appears. Now you can make this a floating filter as well, just so it doesn't have to be there stuck in the corner for now. Let's just drag it down here for the time being. And if I say apply to worksheets, all using this data source, which is all of the sheets in this case, then when I filter, you see that all of the sheets change their values because I said that I want to apply this filter on all of the sheets that use the same data source as this one. So this is how you build a really easy and quick dashboard and make it interactive. And actually, let me just change one more thing, because let me go to this sheet, because I don't like that this is now a different color than the other sheets in my dashboard. So let's change this to blue as well. Yes, that looks better. Now we have some more consistency in this dashboard. Now that we have this dashboard and our sheets, we can also make a story. And that's the icon on the far right. So next to the new dashboard, you have new story. And here you can build a presentation. So you can drag in your dashboard. So now it doesn't fit. Let me adjust the size a little bit. And you can add a caption. So this is my dashboard. And then you can also drag in your sheets. So, for example, but I also found this. So this is a way of presenting your work in an interactive way, because the filter still works. And you can just show your findings and combine your sheets and your dashboards in a very easy way. You see the filters here available still. So we're not going to go into that any further right now. Just know that the option is there to build that. And now you can go and save your workbook. So Tableau gives you two different ways to do this. And if I go save this, you can see that it gives me the option to save it as a Tableau workbook or as a packaged workbook. And when I save it as a TWB file, the workbook includes the sheets and the dashboard, but not the data. And when you save this as a packaged workbook, the data is also included. So if you want to share this with a colleague and he doesn't have the Excel files that he needs to build more sheets or do whatever with the workbook, then you can send the TWBX file. But for now, I can just save it as a Tableau workbook because I have all the data on my computer, so I don't need to save it in this workbook as well. And what you can also do is sign into your server or Tableau online and publish the workbook there. And you can also publish the data source, so other people can also work with this data source. And if you work with multiple data sources, you can choose which one you want to publish. And the last thing you can do is publish your dashboard to Tableau Public. But you have to be careful with this, or you have to be aware that this is a public website. So anything you post on there can be viewed by anyone who watches your dashboard on the website. So you cannot make anything private or hidden. So with HR data, that's probably not a good way to go. But if you want to practice and you have some open source data, you can definitely post it on there and get some feedback from the Tableau community and just look at some other people's work and get some inspiration on there. So that's really useful as well.